What's a good age to start? Well, some people would say even before the baby is born, but I don't think we have any proof that whether that's true or not. But I would definitely say as soon as possible. Start with music, start with songs, start with television, and basically if kids get used to, say, watching cartoons in English, then they probably will protest if you try and put them on Spanish, because they get used to it, and they're like sponges, so they absorb everything, they take everything in, they're curious, so start as soon as possible would be my answer to that question. Definitely, and Spain in particular has been one of the first countries to really bring down the starting age, both at school and as soon as they start at school, or even before they start at school, parents quite often are taking them to language schools or activities in English. And I think the key thing is that whenever you start, you've got to maintain curiosity, you've got to maintain motivation. The children have got to like English, and that's got to continue as they grow up. So that's the important thing, that right from the start it's something they like, it's fun, they can do things with it, and that has to continue as they grow up. Well, I work with the Cambridge Assessment English exams, and they're designed for children from the age of 7 really. You sometimes get 6-year-olds doing starters, the first level. They've got to be pretty exceptional, I would say, to do starters at 6 years old, because there is reading and writing involved, and obviously they might not be totally familiar with writing and reading even in their first language, so you've got to take that into consideration. But I think when they're ready, I mean not before they're ready, don't push them too hard. Again, it should be fun, it should be something that they enjoy, something that they feel they can learn from, and they can learn from it. They love preparing for them, they're fun exams, they're really attractive, and so they like doing them. So I would say from the age of 7 or 8, in general terms, that would be the age. Yeah, so how can a teacher encourage their students to take a test? I think not just an external exam, but even a test at school, a test they're doing in the classroom. The key thing is that they understand what they have to do. They've had a bit of training, so it's not something totally new that they've never done before, because that can really make them nervous and really put them off. So the key thing is that they do some practice tests, maybe not in a serious test situation with complete silence, but so that they know the format, they know what to do, and they're not nervous about it. So doing practice tests. In the case of the speaking test, one really motivating way is to show them videos of children doing the speaking tests, and they say, hey, I can do that, and I understood all of that, and I could do that. And I think it's the case of showing them you can do this. Yeah, it's not something that you should be afraid of. In the case of the Young Learners tests, there's a published syllabus, if you like. There are word lists, there are examples, materials, practice materials around, and so they can prepare themselves. And very often it helps. Both of my daughters both did the starters and movers and flyers tests. And for them, it was a way of consolidating language that they knew, words that they knew how to say, and they never thought about how they would write them. So they learned, they sort of linked the written form of the word to a word that they had heard, they maybe used, but they'd never thought about how it was written. So I think it consolidates a lot of the language that they've been learning and they've picked up. And maybe never really sort of thought about. I think it takes them one step further, so they can think and start analysing language. They can start at this age. So being afraid, I've already said the key thing is to know what's expected of you, what do you have to do. So not just springing an exercise, a kind of exercise that they've never done before. They know what to do, they've practiced it. And I think the key thing as well is the atmosphere in the classroom. The test day shouldn't be any different from a teaching day. There should be an atmosphere in the classroom where students have the confidence to ask. The teacher also sharing them the idea that I'm not testing you because I want to fail you or because I want you to have a really bad time in my class. I'm testing you because it helps me as well see what you do know and what you don't know yet. You're on your way, maybe you're not there yet, and it helps me as well because then I can plan my classes. If I need to revise something, can I move on to something new? It's information for me. It's not just it's not a test for you. It's something that helps me. I think that's the key thing. There has to be a really positive atmosphere in the classroom, even on the test day. Well, in the tests I work with, the Cambridge Assessment English Young Learners tests, there are 3 levels: starters, movers, and then we fly with flyers. In all of the 3 levels, and in fact in all the Cambridge exams that I work with anyway, we're testing what we call the 4 skills. So we're asking them to speak, we're asking them to listen and answer questions in some way, and we're asking them to read. And the new thing for 2018, at 2 of the levels, we're going to be asking them to write either some sentences or a short story. Okay, so there's always a balance of skills, and what we're trying to do is to encourage them to move up the levels, if you like, to improve their English in a balanced way. So it's not just speaking, it's not just writing, but you can do a bit of everything. Inevitably, somebody's probably going to be better at one thing than another, but again, it's a way of indicating to them if their listening is always the weakest part, then maybe they can practice by listening to more music or watching more television or doing more practice listenings. Yeah? As English teachers, we quite often say that we do help them with in their first language as well. Because in the Cambridge exams they have to write, and as they move up they'll have to write other different kinds of texts. We're teaching them not only English, but we're teaching them to think about, well, what can I say, what can I write? We're always trying to encourage them to, and it's quite difficult, I think, especially in Spain for some reason, but maybe in general, to not start writing immediately, but to stop and think, what can I say, what words can I use, what grammar can I use, how can I make it more interesting, and we can help them there are some very simple ideas, simple ways of helping them to do that. And that's some of the things I'll be looking at tomorrow in my session. We're going to be looking at ways of writing, building up a story right from the start with words, and then adding details, imagination, adding things people say, things people think, making it more interesting. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some very, very simple steps to do that, and I think that's quite easy to then take into the classroom and train our children, train our students. I think I'd like to say thank you to ACEIA for inviting me again. I was here last year and thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I'm really looking forward to listening to lots of other speakers and also to sharing ideas with people who'll come to my session tomorrow.